Greetings. This webinar is a follow-up presentation to my earlier webinar on procurement and tender writing. This one is about selecting a contractor. The focus will be on what should be considered when selecting a contractor for a proposed new building. There are a number of key factors that can be used in the evaluation and determination of the most suitable contractor. As I indicated in a previous webinar, I discussed the various stages for procurement. The various stages and substages that exist when we consider the process of our building requires the selection, certainly, of a general contractor, that being a crucial part of any project. A number of selection methods actually exist. The construction bidding documents generally become contract documents when a contract is made. We can see if we look through the various stages, starting with the owner's program, I indicated in my previous presentation, design stage, through to schematics, development of the design, and the actual formation of the construction documents. And then eventually out to the bid tender review stage, where we're going to be talking about what to look for about the general contractor that will be selected. Of course, there's also the purchasing stage. Part of the contract is a financial agreement between the parties that have an obligation. And certainly during the construction, the payment stage. Often on publicly funded projects, the award of a construction contract is based on a sealed bidding process. It may also be called open bidding. All bidders receive the same information, thus are in the equal competitive standing to submit their own bid. Generally, the contract is awarded to the lowest bidder. So if we take a look at it, again, the most often documents that are included are the drawings and specifications, the bid form, the bidding requirements, and the owner-contractor agreement. Let's talk a little bit about the invitation for bidding. The bidding process may often be referred to as closed bidding. The owner or the architect or engineer rather may be involved in a pre-screening of bidders. They could be often selected by a number of different factors, such as experience, resources, financial standing, specific qualifications, the contractor's reputation, and/or with the quality of work that they actually perform. So this is a pre-selection process where the owner or the architect pre-selects the general contractors. Again, this is often based on a number of criteria, as I just noted. Again, often the contract award goes to that lowest bidder. So in construction bidding, we start looking at price is always a key consideration. On many projects, especially in government construction, the owner must choose the lowest bid. On other jobs, however, qualifications or other factors can be equally or more important than just simply the price. Again, we can see on this slide, perhaps best value. Source selection is a procurement method in which buyers award contracts based on other factors as well as just simply the cost. The goal is to achieve the best combination of price and certainly performance. On our next slide, in the instruction to bidders, the date, time, and place of the bid opening is generally included. That is, unless modified, such as in the case of a closed bidding process. I've listed here a few things for consideration. So when we take a look, a few of the bidding opening procedures to consider include the following. Bids received after a specified date should not be accepted. In an open bidding scenario, the bids are typically read out loud in the presence of any bidders that are present. The bid amount should be recorded. And certainly there has to be an evaluation of those bids. And there should be an announcement of the lowest bidder and if any conditions do apply. So remember, if stated, is likely may indicate that if the owner has the right to accept any of the bids or all bids, or the right to even reject the bids. The bids must be carefully reviewed to determine that all conditions have been met. During the bid opening period, it is best not to give the impression that the low bidder will automatically be awarded the contract on the date of the tender opening. Again, when we start taking a look at the evaluation of bids, again, we can get into a multitude of different things to consider. What about if all the bids exceed the project budget and the owner architect agreement fixes the limit of construction to a set amount, certain amount? The owner certainly has a decision to make. These typically can include to rebid or negotiate, authorize an increase in costs and proceed with the project, work with the architect or engineer to revise the scope of work to help reduce the construction costs, or yet, perhaps even abandon the project. So there can be times when estimated prices simply just exceed the projected costs. The owner needs to consider a number of options, certainly even to the fact of perhaps even rebidding. When we start talking about the next section here, one basic premise in evaluating bids is achieving the best value for the money. As such, from a professional point of view, it should not promote favoritism, the selection what is believed as the best value, and select low bidder based on some of a base bid and determining any additive alternates or credits that may be involved with the particular process. So as long as the selection process is open and accountable and fair and eliminates any outside influences or conflict of interest, certainly we can look for the fair evaluation of bids. Again, there's other criteria that can be used to assess bids. As I've sort of indicated previously, the process usually involves three primary criteria for the owner's consideration. First, price, certainly construction time and date of completion, and competency to perform the work expeditiously. Certainly there is an option. There might be special owner requirements such as specified requirement indicating in the bid requirements for some percentage of the local labor to be included or considered as being favorable to a bid. So accepting the lowest bid is not necessarily the best interest of all parties involved. Some other criteria that we should consider also is the pre-qualification. Certainly when we talk about or being on the invited bidding list, certainly can help reducing the unknown and inexperienced builders. So we also should think about the reputation of the contractor, reputation for satisfactory performance on work, the financial and management stability of the company, and the availability, to take on the work, and qualifications of the project supervisor or superintendent. We want experienced people to be out in the field performing the work and overseeing the work. And perhaps in some cases, could there be some other labor affiliations? So when we take a look at the determination of a successful bidder, we could also take a look at what is covered under the CCDC 23 documents. Under section 8.1 of CCDC 23, a bid analysis and evaluation for compliance, it states that only compliant bids should be accepted and certainly non-compliant bids be rejected. In section 8.2, it states that compliant bids are considered and that no undisclosed preferences should actually apply. Simply, contract award must be a fair process when selecting the successful bidder. Next, we can deal with the letter of intent. When we talk about the letter of intent, we're starting to talk about, the decision to go with one of the bidders as the successful contractor. So in some instances, a letter of intent may be issued by the owner. The letter of intent should only be used where significant issues need to be negotiated or where the bidder has not agreed to some conditions. On the other hand, a letter of acceptance is the other option signed by the owner where accepting the bid as it stands without any alteration or conditions. So this communication to the proposed successful bidder may take form as a letter of intent or as a letter of acceptance. Post-bid negotiations and rebidding. Well, some things to think about. Where the bid price must be reduced is less than 15% of the lowest compliant bid, the first step should be to negotiate with the lowest compliant bidder only to identify changes in the scope or quality of work and their corresponding bid price reduction. Where the amount by which the bid price must be reduced exceeds 15%, however, of the lowest compliant bid, the bid calling authority may immediately undertake either of the preceding steps at its discretion. So what we're really starting to talk about here is, do we want to talk about the lowest compliant bid exceeds the budget or exceeds the budget? But rebidding should be avoided whenever possible because the additional time and costs incurred by all parties. Withdrawal or correction of bids. In order to allow the owner time to consider a bid, it is common to request that the bids remain effective for a fixed period of time, typically 30 to 60 days. When we start taking a look at that, generally depending on the terms and conditions, withdrawal of a bid may or may not be allowed. Mistakes after bid submission can be consequential, such as forfeiture of a bid or security bond, or perhaps even other legal action. This is a good reason why a bid bond or security bond is often required for a project. Unsuccessful bidders. Simply, it would be a nice courtesy and a professional obligation to notify the unsuccessful bidders of the award of a contract. The letter to unsuccessful bidders notifies all bidders of the status of the project and permits bidders to make necessary arrangements for any bonding or security deposits to be returned. Again, just a nice formal way of advising the bidders and perhaps keeping them in good nature for any future upcoming projects. So a few closing reflections. The fundamental goal underlying procurement in the procurement process and selection of any qualified contractor is often based on the lowest cost alone. However, as discussed, there are a number of things to consider in the evaluation of bids. It is generally more effective to identify the best value tender based on predefined selection criteria that relates to the aspects of the contractor's performance and certainly with consideration of trying to obtain best value. Not always an easy or really a simple task. So we discussed the procurement stages, comments on bidding, issues that may arise from the bids, bid opening considerations, evaluation criteria. And again, there is certain flexibility, but there should be something defined so that there is a measure for the evaluation criteria. Determining the successful bidder. Intent, acceptance, and agreement. Communicating with the unsuccessful bidders. Again, I'd like to thank you. Certainly, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact me. Again, my email is indicated below. The other thing you can do is go to the FNNBOA website and look at the procurement booklets, which can also help fill in some of the information. As we can see, if we take a look around the procurement wheel, the introduction, procurement, contracts, pre-contracts, contracting, contract administration, post-contract, guides, and some definitions. Certainly, we hope that we are providing some education to help talk a little bit more to the understanding of procurement, and certainly, in this case, selecting a bidder, your successful bidder and contractor. Thank you.